So right now we need to make our spaceship respond to gravity and move, but to actually have some controls. To do that, we actually have to do a couple of things. So I know I just deleted that spaceship raw blueprint. I'm going to go ahead and drag that back into the scene just to show you an example of something really quick. Our player, when we press play, is going to start where the player start is, right here. However, we're still going to have technically another player, but we're possessing the one that it spawns. I'm going to press play, and I can see that I'm possessing the one that is facing the ring, not the one that is off to the side. Now with the spaceship selected, I'm going to look at my details panel and I can see the components that are part of this blueprint. I have the blueprint itself. I have the static mesh for the Star Sparrow, and then I have the camera. Now, one important thing about this is that this is in a hierarchy. Because our SM Star Sparrow is underneath the BP spaceship, BP spaceship owns the static mesh. Wherever that blueprint goes, that static mesh will go. Our camera, being underneath Star Sparrow 1, the static mesh, means that the camera is owned by the static mesh. Wherever that static mesh goes, the camera goes. So if I move my blueprint, the static mesh and the camera go with. This means that in order for our camera to follow the static mesh, we don't actually have to do anything other than attach it. If you select the static mesh inside the details panel, you can see a bunch of different settings. We can change the static mesh. We can change the material and give it a different material if we wanted to. You can also look and see this physics section. In fact, I can find this even easier if I just use this top bar and select physics. I now have this button that says simulate physics. I'm going to drag this forward so I can see it in my view when I press play. So I'll put it next to the ring. And I'll turn on simulate physics. Press play. And now my spaceship blueprint fell. The blueprint that I'm controlling did not. That's because any changes that are made to a blueprint inside of the level, inside the map, in this details panel, are not saved to the original blueprint. My actual blueprint file, if I open that up, and I select my static mesh, and I look for physics, simulate physics is not on. That is because I made the change originally here inside of the editor, but I didn't modify the actual file. Any change that I make in the actual blueprint will show up in the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here and turn simulate physics back off, and instead go to my blueprint and turn on simulate physics here. Now, anything that is created from this blueprint will have physics on. And I can modify some settings for it. I'm going to leave those alone for right now, though. I just want it to fall. I'll save and compile. Go back to my scene and press play. And now the ship that the player is controlling, even though it doesn't move yet, and the blueprint that was there, both fall. I'm going to go back to the blueprint that I have here, this test one, and I'm going to select it. I'll select the static mesh, and then change the setting view to all. I have materials here. I can change the material by selecting this and select a bunch of different ones that are there already. So if I just type in Sparrow, I can see the ones that are set up for Star Sparrow. I can make it green by just clicking on it. But again, when I press play, my original one, the one that I generate, is still red. The one that's there in the scene was changed, but those changes don't copy over. I go back to my blueprint instead, and I go in here and change it in here. I'll go blue. And now if I press play, save and compile, sorry. Now if I press play, it's blue. It changed it because this copy of the character that we create when we press play is created from the source file, while the one that was already in the scene, wait, that's blue. That's weird. Well, that's because it accepted the change from that original, from the blueprint. So what we change in here has an effect on the editor, but what we change in the editor does not have effect on the actual blueprint itself. So now that I have my physics on, I'm going to go to my blueprint spaceship and go to my event graph. What I want this to do is I want the spaceship, when I press a button, to bounce up, basically. It's going to be like a Flappy Bird game where we're going to have traps, so we hit, we die. And we want the movement to happen pretty much automatically forward. But we want to be able to steer and to be able to press the space bar to make the ship go up. We still want physics to drag it back down. We want to add an impulse up. In the event graph, we're going to worry about the actual input later. Let's get it actually so it will bounce. It will move the player up. So I'm going to grab my event tick and then drag off of here. And I'm going to add impulse. Right here. So add impulse. What does this do? Well, first off, this node takes an input for the target. Target is the static mesh. We're saying take the static mesh, take our spaceship model, and add an impulse. Now the add impulse node here says to add an impulse to a single rigid body, good for a one-time instant burst. All right, seems like it might work. It's going to just like push it up, push it in a direction. Which direction do we want it to go in? Well, we have X, Y, and Z. X would be forward, Y would be the right, Z would be up. So I'm going to add an impulse of, say, 1. And it will do this every frame. Because this is on event tick, it's going to happen every single frame. Let's see what happens when we do that. Save and compile. Press play. And it looks like it didn't do nearly enough. We need it to add more of an impulse. It's too heavy. I'll change this to 100. See what that does. Compile and save. Oh, that didn't work still. Our spaceship is too heavy. Here, we have this checkbox that says vel change, velocity change. If true, the strength is taken as a change in velocity instead of an impulse. So mass will have no effect. Let's turn that on. And we'll save and compile. And fun fact, we don't actually need to go back to our editor to press play. We can actually just press right here. We get a little pop-up. And that worked. Our spaceship is flying. But because it's adding that every single frame, it's just continuing to go up and up and up. It doesn't have a chance to fall back down. So let's take this add impulse and instead of being on tick, let's change it to be on just begin play. To break this connection, you right click, break this link. You also can just hold on the Alt button and click. Or you can drag a different execution pin into it. Now it'll happen both times, which that's not really what we want. So I'm going to right click, break all pin links, and then connect this to begin play. I want it to just add an impulse one time. Compile and save. And did add that impulse. It just wasn't enough, but it's fine. Not nearly going hard enough, so let's change this to 10,000 so we can really see it in action. Save and compile. And boom, a big bounce up, and then should eventually start falling down, but hard to tell. Point being, it works. However, we really want this to be on the key press. We want to be able to press something to have that work. So if I go to my event graph and right click let's just type in spacebar. Keyboard event. Spacebar. The keyboard event says whenever a certain thing happens, do something. In this case, whenever we press the spacebar, we can make it do something. All right, well, let's break that link to begin play and take this, drag this down. And let's say whenever we press spacebar, we want it to add an impulse. I'll set the impulse back to, let's say, 100. Compile and save. Let's test it out. There we go. I'm pressing the spacebar and I'm adding an impulse. The issue is I'm not getting nearly enough force and it's not going evenly across it, so I'm kind of stuck on the ground. Let's increase this to, let's say, 1,000. File and save. There we go. Now it bounced up and it is just spinning. It is moving though. It is just spinning. So we need to actually lock this so that way it will not rotate anymore. We don't want it to rotate. Back to our blueprints, viewport, go to our static mesh. I'll search physics. And we can lock the position and lock rotation. Now I want it to be able to turn left and right, but I don't want it to spin up and down or spin around. So let's lock it on the X and lock it on the Y. File and save. Let's play. And now I am kind of flying, sort of. Right? I'm able to press the spacebar and I can do it multiple times without falling. And there we go. We are on our way. Next, we'll set up our forward movement, which is going to be fairly similar. And then we'll worry about collision and turning and things like that afterwards. That's it for this one. Thanks.